Right, so hello everyone. Welcome to our Love Data Week Zoom sessions. Um, Please feel free to share any questions or comments that you have during the presentation in the chat. We hope to see you join us for some of our other Love Data Week sessions and our in-person event this Friday, our open house. So thank you again for being here. And I'm now going to turn it over to Ahmad Pratama. Pramata. Oh my God, thank you. I'm sorry. I practice, I promise. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Hi, everyone. So today I'll be sharing with you all basically this is the findings from my own research. So when I started in the summer 2024 as the Data Literacies Lead here at Stony Brook University Libraries, I wanted to, because I was assigned to build like the data literacy program from the ground up, because we didn't have anything at Stony Brook University Libraries at that time. We do have some like data management stuff, but we want to have something more like robust for the entire data lifecycle. And the way that I decided to approach it is by collecting my own data, because there's no data about it at that time. So that's why I decided to start with this one. So let's start by setting the scene first here, why we at the university libraries surveyed the pack and also who answered the call. So again, like I mentioned earlier, the idea was to map the data DNA here at Stony Brook University. I wanted to understand more about the landscape of not only who used the data, what kind of data being used. So basically, it's all about data. I was collecting data about how people use data at Stony Brook. So the mission here is to identify where our community excels and also where the libraries can bridge the gap, because I was assigned to build a robust data literacy program to help and support the entire campus community. And the scope here is assessing the needs or across, because data is literally everywhere, right? So we use data in research, teaching, and also in our administrative roles as well. So and yeah, let's meet the pack here. Let me just move myself to the right so you can see the chart better here. So this is the samples of my survey. So I would say I was quite lucky to get a good amount of numbers. It was 500-ish, around 550 answered my call, but after I clean up the data, because I wanted to include only those completed the survey, because I just want to make sure that all the analysis that I'm presenting today is standardized. So I excluded every single response that was incomplete. So I ended up with 369 responses, 49% of which are undergraduate student. Around 21% are staff, followed by around 60% faculty and 40% graduate students. And in terms of affiliations, I will say it's quite diverse. We have art and sciences, engineering and applied sciences, health sciences, university administrations, School of Marine Atmospherical SOMAS, College of Business, School of Professional Development, and some others, basically. So yeah, it's quite representative, I would say, in terms of the sample compared to the actual population. And Yeah, let's move on to the data used among Seawolves in daily life. So here I'll be talking about like how data flows through our classrooms, labs, and also offices. Because remember, the samples was quite diverse. I have faculty, staff, students, not only undergraduate, but also graduate students, even though the majority of my samples, the majority of respondents, almost 50% of them were undergraduate students. So this is the basically how we use data on daily basis here. Based on the survey, more than 40% says they always interact with data or interact with data most of the time. I would say it translates to maybe like weekly or daily basis. So basically regular or power users more than regulars. I will say it's power users. And then the regulars, those who answered sometimes or around 29% or 25.5 here, 28.5. They engage with data sometimes, or yeah, again, I would say this is also considered as regulars. And then the baseline, those who said they never or only deal with data occasionally, they're less than 31%. And also when we look further, we break it down by role. It's kind of understandable that faculty and staff use data more regularly, more often. They use data more frequently compared than students. So students use, because again, the majority of my respondent here by far is undergraduate students. So it's understandable that especially if they're still like in their freshman or sophomore year, maybe they don't really deal with data, especially in their coursework. We will discuss that. I will show you the data later on about how they use data in courses, because there's also questions about that. So this is it. So this is so out of 300, almost 370, 369 respondents using data in their courses. Sorry, 369 respondents in my survey. Almost 280 said that they use data in their courses. And then of those who use data in their courses, more than 3/4 use quantitative data. So by far, it's the most dominant types of data. But that's not the whole story here. We see there are at least 3 types of data where they're being used by more than half of respondents who use data in their courses. So in addition to quantitative data, there's also qualitative data, basically any kind of textual data, anything that is not numerical. And also there's some experimental data. So maybe folks from health sciences or engineering, they use lots of experimental data. So I would say those are the core data pillars here at Stony Brook in classrooms, in courses. In addition to those 3, we also have 3 other here, the emerging or specialized fields, like maybe in social sciences. They use a lot of survey data. And also because we're basically we gather so much data from the internet now. So web and social data in the past, it's limited to maybe folks who are capable of scraping data from the internet. But now, even social sciences folks, they're also capable, because there's so many different types of tools right now out there that can help you collect data from the internet or from social media. And this kind of data is especially helpful to analyze like social and behavioral science, for instance. So yeah, it's definitely something that's worth looking for. And there's also like niche market for geospatial data. It's not as popular as any other types of data here, but it exists basically. It's still like some people here at Stony Brook use geospatial data on regular basis. And when we break it down by role, we can see some kind of gaps or differences between roles as well. Quantitative data is still the king. So it's consistently being used the most by either faculty, staff, or student. It doesn't matter what their role is. Quantitative data is still the most frequently used data types. But if we look at the like the second and the third position there's some differences. Student, apparently they use slightly more experimental data than qualitative data. Whereas staff, they use experimental data at the second place, but faculty, the second rank, the third rank here is survey data, not experimental data. So yeah, we can see some dynamics here based on their role for the second, third, and the fourth positions. So it's kind of interesting to see the dynamic at play here based on the role that we have here at Stony Brook. And next, we move on to data in research, because as we all know, data is basically the engine of discovery, because without data, we can't produce anything. There's no findings without data. So basically, we use data and then we describe the methods on the method is basically describing how we analyze the data, how we collect the data, how we analyze the data, and then finally how we present the data. So again, here, just like in the courses, so this is among active researchers. Out of 369 total respondents, 56 of them identified themselves as active researchers. And of those 56, more than 80% use quantitative data on regular basis. Same. So again, quantitative data remains the most widely used type of data in research. But as we can see here, there's some differences compared to in classroom or in courses. We can see slightly more experimental data than qualitative data, even though both of them are still being used more than half of the respondent here. Geospatial data, in classroom, it was only around 8%, but for research, it sees like the largest relative growth compared to classroom, maybe because there's like really specific research requires geospatial data. So yeah, and then we also see some increase in survey data in research compared to in courses. And last but not least, here is a minor dip in the use of web and social data in research versus in course. So maybe it's possible that faculty or students use web and social data more in classroom for like case studies, or just basically just to practice for exercise rather than for actual research project. So it makes sense because it's readily available. It's so easy to get. So yeah, it is totally understandable why that is the case. And yeah, as we can see here, we do have basically the main takeaway from the how Seawolves use data is around 70% of Seawolves interact with data every single day. And then there's also the main takeaway here is we are a data-driven campus. It doesn't matter what the role is. It doesn't matter which discipline. So basically, we are a data-driven campus. So the next question here is our support system keeping up with this demand? There is a huge demand of data support, basically. So let's move on to the toolbox. So I'll start with the foundation here. I asked the respondents the same questions. Do you use any tools, data tools? And then 347 of respondents answers or pick like some data tools that they regularly use. And clear winner here is spreadsheet applications, either Excel or Google Sheets. It's around 70%. I would say it's not surprising, to say the least, because it is the entry point. It is the most accessible starting point for organizing information. Even like for no matter how expert you are with data, chances are you're still gonna be using spreadsheet to organize your data at some point, right? So yeah, it's like the entry point here. And then if we break it down by role, there's also slight difference. We can see Excel is more popular among faculty and staff, whereas Google Sheets is more popular among students compared to Excel. And then the rest is pretty much well balanced. Python is more popular among students, whereas the popularity in Python and R is quite equal between faculty and staff, slightly leaning toward R for staff, and exactly equal for faculty. So yeah, slightly difference in this, but the rest is pretty much quite the pattern. We can see like a dominant patterns. The top two basically are the spreadsheet applications, followed by the coding languages, Python and R, and then followed by some other tools like specialized tool, I would say. And then let's delve further into the ecosystem here. Let me move myself here. So this heat map is basically co-occurrence or interdependence to see the kind of correlations. How often is like two different tools used together? So as you can see here, the darker the color means the more likely that those two tools being used together. So we can see Excel and Google Sheets here. Basically, both the two of them are, because they're similar spreadsheet applications, and apparently almost 46% of the respondents use both Excel and Google Sheets. So it's not exclusively Excel only or Google Sheets, but they use both in tandem for whatever reasons. Maybe because sometimes they require, it maybe it's also because of collaborations. It really, because when you're collaborating with people, maybe sometimes you have to send your document or your spreadsheet as an Excel file, for instance, because you can't share it as a Google Sheets link. Even though here, because we are Google Workspace heavy campus, maybe most of our workflow are pretty much in Google ecosystem. So we start working in Google Sheets, but then when we share it with someone else, we send it by email or we upload it to a platform as an Excel file. Maybe that's the case. So whatever the reason is, but it's 46% the correlation between the two. And then there's also integrations of Python and R. You can see the color is slightly darker, not as dark as the spreadsheet, but still Python and R, they're kind of cross-platform utility. And then we can see the niche tools like MATLAB, SAS, or Stata, which the value here, you can see whose values 0. Basically, they're like exclusive. Most users of these tools are, they typically commit to a single ecosystem. And you can also see it further by looking at this network here. So yeah, Google Excel in the middle, followed by Google Sheets closely next to it. And then you can see Python and R color here. The closer to yellow the color is, it means the more the more centralized it is. And then the closer it is to blue, which it means the more disconnected it is from the entire network, the more isolated it is. You see, Stata, MATLAB, and SAS, pretty much those three are isolated. It means people who use MATLAB, they're unlikely to use Stata or something. They're still likely to. There's like a few of them use MATLAB and Python, but not many, things like that, basically. And there's also comfort gap here between use and mastery. So we have like a lot of tools, but as we can see here, among those who say that they use these tools for spreadsheet, we can still see like around 40% of respondents say that they require support in Excel, and around 30% require support in Google Sheets. But when we compare the use and the mastery, it's not necessarily it's actually negative value. So, but for Python and R, it's the opposite. So those who use compared to those who need support in, it's basically more people they need support in. Basically, it's like people saying, I don't use Python yet. I don't use Python regularly, but I want to learn and I need support in. I'll be willing to learn more about it if there's like support that I can, any support system that I can use. So that's why here at the library we try to focus more on this Python and R. So that's why yeah, I'll talk more about it later. And challenges and aspirations. So where the road where the road gets bumpy here, common roadblock usually includes data analysis, visualization, and management. Basically, these are the activities included in data. And yeah, why is training hard? Because there's time constraint, accessibility, and also customization. And I'll just skip this one. Yeah, the comfort gap. I asked the same similar questions like I did for tools mastery. So I compare the comfort and need for support. And as we can see here, people are pretty much quite comfortable when it comes to data collections. But the one that they struggle the most is data management, data cleaning and wrangling, and data visualization. So that's why in the libraries, we are trying our best to provide support, focusing more on this three: management, cleaning and wrangling, and data visualization. And then also interest in data services. We ask them what kind of service, data service that you'll be interested in. We can see top request here is workshop. That's also why we at the libraries provide these regular workshops called data stacks. So at each semester, we provide around 4 to 5 data stacks workshops, and then research guides, and also one-on-one consultation. And then for students specifically, they're interested in course integrated sessions and credit-bearing courses. We answer this this demand by offering and introducing 2 courses: LBR 201 Critical Information Literacy and LBR 211 Critical Data and AI Literacies. LBR 201 is being taught this semester. LBR 211 will be taught next semester. And yeah, let's go to the conclusions. yeah, data is diverse. It's not just cells. We heard it. So in the survey, some folks noted that data is not only about spreadsheet. I agree. I totally agree that that's also the reason. That's also why in the survey I asked like qualitative data. I asked about geospatial data and so many other types of data because it's not only about numbers. It's not only about things that you can fit in spreadsheet. So any evidence used to answer research questions or support a decision, basically it's categorized as data. So yeah, we need to keep that in mind, and we try our best to also provide support for any types of data. And then this is the state of the pack here, basically interdisciplinary, ambitious, and ready for support. And finally, this is our resources. If you're interested in learning more about our data services, be it the research guide, we provide data management, data cleaning and wrangling, and data visualization for now, because those based on the survey, those are the like the data lifecycle or data phase or data activities where Seawolves require support the most. But our collection is growing to meet your evolving needs. And feel free to drop any questions or any support requests or anything to our email at dataservices@stonybrook.edu. Thank you very much. And if I know we only have like 3 minutes left, if you have any questions, I'll be here. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a quick question. So did you collect any qualitative data, open-ended questions? What were some themes that came out of the qualitative data? Just curious.
Thank you, Ling. Yeah. I did have some data, some qualitative data. Unfortunately, it's not enough to analyze it like computationally speaking, because it's out of 369 responses, maybe I got around 20, 30 responses with some qualitative. I did have like one, not only one, a few actually, three or four text fields where they can just add in like informations, or in addition to the final questions in my survey was just any additional note basically. And pretty much this is also why I put this slide. It's part of my analysis of the qualitative input that I received. Like some of them, especially from CAS, art and humanities folks, they said that I don't know. I never use spreadsheet, but I'm pretty sure I deal with data, but it's different types of data. It's like digital art. It's oral histories, and I said yes, that's part of data as well. It's just especially now we have so many different types of methods to analyze different types of data that is not numerical. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? We have 1 minute left. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ahmad, for your presentation, and thank you everybody else for your time. We appreciate it. Hopefully we see you at some of these additional sessions this week. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.